Well, it feels good to be back on a Monday night. Danny's been teaching this class for a while, but during the Sinkville Cup, I had all these fans here. They said they're only going if I'm teaching it. So here I am, stepping up. You gotta give the fans what they want. So a month or so ago, back when I was teaching the class weekly, we'd been going over the Winawer, or as Ben Simon very aptly titled it, the Voracious Winawer. And since I'm American, I have social permission to mispronounce it and call it Winawer for the rest of this lecture. And today we're just going to be focused on the main line Winawer, which is the poison pawn, so some of the sharpest, most aggressive ways that you can play. We'll flip the board around to see it from Black's point of view. So just to refresh, we get the French defense, and after the two most logical moves, when White plays knight to c3, the most classical way to defend the e-pawn, Black now, instead of knight to f6, plays the move bishop to b4, and this is the Winawer. So, okay, for some of the sidelines, you can see part one, but we're just going to focus here on the main line, which is e5. And in the French, the main break that Black is usually playing for, he's trying to strike at the center, so c5. And White takes the opportunity to grab the bishop pair. Okay, so he gets the bishop pair. Okay, and we did cover this last time, but we'll go over it one more time. If bishop to a5, does anybody know what tricky move White has here?
b4, right?
Yeah, b4. And so the point is, after you take, this pin is temporarily blocked. So now we can use this time to jump in to some of these dark squares. The arrows better be working, otherwise we'll have to call Danny again. Yeah, before the show we had to call Danny to set up ChessBase, right? He's the IT guru. But you want to go here? Pawn takes pawn, check. Okay, I'll play here, and then my next move is just going to be, I might go here, I might go here. You're going to get into some trouble. Bishop c7. Okay, very logical. All right, I'll just go here. Just knight e7. Okay, and at some point I think I just take this. What is the line? There's a way to really get you good. How do I get you good? Arjun. Arjun's here, so I need a lot of Arjun help. What's the get 'em good line? What? Black can get him good. There. Yes. Okay. So I mean, it just says White is up a tremendous amount. And this is actually interesting because the theme that we're kind of going to see a lot, especially in the Winawer, every opening kind of has their own sort of spirit to it, the way that you sort of play it. Sometimes it's very positional. But in the Winawer, I'll call on you in just a second. What tends to matter more than material is the activity of your pieces. So the fact that we're going to get control of some of these dark squares, I thought maybe this is the move. I didn't even see what the computer said, but I think this is actually the move. So I'm attacking this, and okay, you have to play bishop b6 or something, and if I want, I can take and check, or who knows, maybe I just want to keep my pieces here. But what tends to matter in the Winawer, and we're going to see this a lot, we'll back up to our position here, because it is an interesting line, and some good people have indeed played the move bishop to a5, if it'll let me, bishop to a5 in this position. So some good people have played that way, so it is possible. But in general, in this opening, especially in the poison pawn that we're going to see, material doesn't matter. What matters is the activity of your pieces. So having just the better placed pieces are what is going to generate the most counterplay for you in these types of positions. And tonight we're going to focus on the main line here. And there's kind of a lot of lines I wanted to look at, but we're just going to look at the sharpest move here. There's moves like knight f3, h4, a4. There's a whole bunch of moves here. But for the sake of the time here, we're just going to look at the main line here. And so this is where we're going to deviate from the last lecture. We showed a Caruana game from the US Championship where his opponent Sam Shanklin castled. That was our last lecture. But today we're going to look at the very exciting pawn gambit. This is the poisoned pawn. Black is trying to argue, you can't just get your queen out and then just start taking all my pawns. You got to develop your pieces. Meanwhile, Black's going to get very active play. He's going to attack the center. He's got lots of pressure here on the center. The queen is, very nicely placed. Sometimes if I can go here, So maybe some good things will happen for me. And really, you put your queen on g4. So we're going to go a few more moves. So we'll get to the main tabia for this position. Rook g8, exactly. And have this pawn. And so for the moment, white has all of L8 pawns. Black has 6 pawns, but he is about to get one back when he takes on d4. So after he takes, it would be a big mistake to take here. Big mistake. Yeah, queen c3. So he is going to get that pawn back, and now white needs to make a decision. And it is kind of funny because I've had people ask me, why would you play this with either side? Why would white go grab all these pawns? Why, would black give up pawns? White has the 2 bishops. Black has active pieces. And that's going to be the theme. So black he's going to hope to develop his pieces. He's got some logical squares. Often this bishop will maneuver to another diagonal. Very often he's castling queenside. And he gets a lot of counterplay, and we'll see it. And a lot of the times, either white, this is a huge asset, this big pass pawn. I played a game against a master. I'll probably show you guys, not you guys. I'll probably show the special for the class that game because it was really quick. I played a master. All I did was I pushed my pawn and I queened. He didn't stop me. So that was funny because he's a master. I just pushed my h pawn and I queened. Yeah, very strange game. But okay. So sometimes that's white's thing. So in end games, you're a pawn up and you have this passed h pawn. So white would really like to trade queens whenever that's possible. Your endgames are going to favor white because you're up a pawn. And the king usually will be stranded here in the center. You don't really want to go queenside. And if we start pushing our pawns here, it's going to be harder to castle on the king side. So very often the king gets stuck in the center. So that's part of the compensation that black gets for the pawn. So what to do? And there's actually, surprisingly, 2 moves here. Queen d3 is not one of them. I assume queen d3 I can take either way. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't decided what I'll take with. The most common move by far is knight to e2. This defends the c3 square. Okay, it attacks a pawn. That's going to be useful. It does obviously block in the bishop. He'll probably fianchetto the bishop. Sometimes you do. Sometimes it just stays there for a while since we're not really going to castle anyway. And eventually, black is going to start putting stuff in the way, and we'll see how the position will change in character in just a minute. Just sacrifice your rook and bishop and get a queen for it. What? Yeah, just do it. Yeah, there's no stopping it. Just all the way. Well, that's my experience. You just push it all the way and you make a queen. But okay, so this obviously, we'll come back to this and we'll show our main featured game here. We'll have the quote-unquote obvious move. But there also exists this very unique move, king to d1, which is very surprising. But now if you take here, it's obviously not check. And okay, if you take there, you're going to force this rook to a file that it usually likes to go to. That rook almost always goes to b1, so not so bad. And the other main reason you would do this is you're thinking, well, I want to develop my knight to a much more natural square. I want to go to f3. So that's something that you can do in this line because you're just willing to part with the c3 pawn. And it's kind of like white is saying, well, yeah, I don't really care about the material either. I'm just going to put you can have the pawn back either now or on the next turn. We'll just put a few moves on the board. And whenever you take it, you can have the pawn back. But I also want to just put my pieces on all the best squares. And the main line here is kind of surprising. There's a couple moves that have been played, but the most popular is knight to g5. All I need to attack you with is a queen and a knight. That's all I need. So we have some obvious threats, and okay, there's a couple different ways that you can play it. Rook f8, and so this is again going to be central to our theme. We really want to just keep all of our pieces on the best squares possible. This is really this is a great file for the rook, nice and open. We don't want to put a rook here, not if we don't have to. And you don't have to. Knight takes e5, which at first, might look good, or maybe it looks a little risky. f4, absolutely.
What about bishop?
Bishop f4. So if bishop f4, So I always have the opportunity to sack the exchange. I assume I can also play f6, which is the main line after f4. For some reason, most people sacrifice the exchange here, which is interesting, but it isn't necessary, but it does keep kind of with the theme of the opening. But it is a nice rook, so perhaps even a little bit better is the move f6. There's not a whole lot of games that have gone this way, but either move should be a decent position for black. But since most people don't play that, we won't spend too much more time on it. In this position, almost everybody universally plays knight to e2. Okay, and we can take here now, we can take here in a minute. There's lots of transpositions, so we will look at just the main move here. You know, develop your knight, attack pawns, defend this thing, you know. And you'll notice too, there's a trick. So this is not a threat, because knight takes, exactly. So this was not a threat. And if you take, you really shouldn't. I go here. So since he's not threatening that, we can safely develop our knight. And now it is really time for him to defend his e-pawn. So f4. And now he can take. And we'll look at, this will be sort of a main line that we'll look at via a transposition. So the most common moves here is either you take the pawn or you play bishop d7. And I want to go over this line because it's becoming more popular. It's sort of the new modern main line for this opening. The old way they'd always play with bishop d7. But this does have some independent significance, and we'll look at that. So after here, again, the most popular line has been bishop to d7. And we'll have a look at that. But becoming trendier is this move, d4. So we're going to lose a pawn, and this is how we choose Wesley So. That's his name. This is how we choose to lose our pawn. And so we'll take a look at this in a second and try to understand, what kind of move is d4? We'll have a look. But let's just for a second go ahead and look at the main line. So this is how most games have been played. And there's lots of moves, the two most common obviously being taking the pawn. You can take with the knight or the queen. Taking with the queen does have the benefit of keeping this knight pinned. And even if we castled, we never really want to trade queens, so that can be slightly annoying. White wants to trade the queens because he's a pawn up and he has the passed h-pawn. So he's almost winning if he gets to trade the queens and enter an endgame. So black does have to be really careful. Black wants to keep the pieces on the board, especially the queens, because this king is not going to be as safe as the black king. You can imagine, we castle and then we go to b8. It's a lot safer than this king is going to end up being, especially whenever white starts pushing his pawns. So yeah, it's definitely black that wants to keep the stuff on the board. But we'll look at this move, which is the most popular move, gets out of the way of the bishop, and it does immediately sort of threaten to go here, gain a tempo, and then plop the knight in. Oh, it won't let me draw my arrow. Plop the knight into d6, which would be rather devastating. So the move a6, okay, makes sense. Hey, I have to stop your threat. And this sets up a very sneaky trap. Rook to b1, just seems like, okay, just a good move. That's where the rook usually goes. No big problem. But there's actually a little trap here.
Well, I can't castle long.
We can castle long?
No.
No? Why not? Oh, that was easy. All right. Queen takes a6. So this is indeed the trap. So, okay, if you take, you're in a lot of trouble. And if you don't take, you're in a lot of trouble. So you'll get a position like this, which is not very pleasant for the second player here.
You're a little bit like down 3 pawns.
Only down 3 pawns? Is that what you said? No big deal? Yeah, no big deal. 3 pawns in an endgame. Yeah, so obviously, this is the super dream endgame for for white. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that is a little trap. Okay, the main line here instead, knight a5, which does defend the b7 square. So on some lines, when you try to sacrifice, okay, I can drop my knight back. And also, maybe more importantly, I can block this diagonal. I can just plop my knight into c4. And all of your tricks will be thwarted. So h4, very typical move. And black really has to decide where the best squares for all of his pieces are. Now, having seen this weakness, and I mean, you look at white's position, there really are a lot of weaknesses. So he does have to kind of work hard to maintain all of his pawns, because black does get quite a lot of compensation for the pawn. First we go here before we play your move. We want to jump in here if you'll let me. So white should stop this.
Elevator, maybe.
Elevator?
Yeah,
What's an elevator?
like
Rook h3? It's an elevator? I like that. Yeah, so white does an elevator. The rook lifts up. It protects the g3 square. And okay, we castle. And just to give you sort of an idea of where all the pieces go, black will in the future, he'll play here. Sometimes when his knight's not hanging, he'll be able to push, and this bishop will have a great diagonal.
like white's gonna like double up on the H file.
And white should double up on the h file. Maybe. So this is the main line, and this is sort of the position, it's obviously very sharp, very double edged, and that's why you would play this position as black. You're really trying to win. This is a great opening for trying to win, whether you're playing a lower or higher rated player. This is an opening that very often leads to a decisive result. So we'll go back. That is the main line. But we will return here to the main position. Main, exactly.
Well, how many mains are there?
How many? 3 or 4. Do you believe it? No? Okay. Fair enough. And we're going to be following a game that was played in 2014 at the Capablanca Memorial. This is the game between Almasi, so Zoltan Almasi, versus Wesley So, who's playing in the tournament right now. And Wesley was playing with the black pieces. And it's a very good illustration of how to play this opening. What he does, it's very nice. He maneuvers all of his pieces to all the best squares. That's exactly how you play this position as black. And a very phenomenal demonstration of what to do. And very lately, this move d4 is becoming more and more popular. So we'll go ahead and check it out. Now, the most popular move is the obvious move, knight takes pawn. So we'll look at that. And then we'll come back to the game continuation, where white played the alternative, which is knight to g3. So we will come back to this move. I'll just speak about it for a minute. It is very logical. Black's last move, undefended, some light squares. Let's make them green for fun. Some light squares. And so the knight is thinking, all right, I'll just jump in here. I'll jump into some of these squares. That's the weakness of the last move. Or maybe I'll just keep my knight there. And there's so many games where white has trouble castling and just having a safe king that maybe I'll just play bishop e2 and I'll castle. So those are the possibilities for white, which makes this move a rather decent try. And also at the top level, when Wesley So plays this, and you're a grandmaster, he's like 2650 at the time of this game, 2693 at the time of this game. Do you really want to go into his prep? He's obviously studied the main line, so trying to go for a small tangent, small little sideline, makes a lot of sense. But just to see, let's go down the main line here of this, when black plays d4. Okay, we take. And they take back. And you do have to be really careful here. Why'd you play bishop d7? You're right, but why'd you do it?
Well, maybe like bishop c6 or castle long.
Okay, and this is, yes, you can castle along, you can put your bishop here on c6. The correct square for the bishop. You can run into trouble if, for example, you just attack this queen.
That's like weakening your king.
It's weakening the king? Which one? The black king? You can get into trouble with a move like this. If you go to a dark square, I'll have some sort of check that'll annoy you. And if we get to do this, and I can take either way, again, this is going to be an endgame that's really going to favor white. He's going to be able to protect his pawn, and he's just going to be up a pawn in an endgame. Yeah, he's up a pawn, right?
Well, yeah.
4-6, 3-5. Yep, he's up a pawn. So this is the sort of endgame that white really wants to get into, where he's just up a pawn. So you do have to be careful, which is why bishop to d7 is in fact the move. Okay, And the white rook relieves the bishop of his duty of defending the g-pawn. Maybe in the future I'll play g4. And maybe I just want to get my bishop out to some good square.
Well, why did you feel like red knight f5?
Why doesn't he play g4 when?
Like, why, like, in the future you play g5?
Why in the future? Because I want to play here, and I want to play here, and I want to bust you open, and I want to make pass pawns. I already got a pass pawn. I want to go make a queen. So I'm obviously going to play with my pawns on this side of the board because that's where I have a passer, and that's where I'm gonna make a queen in the future. In the end game, I'm gonna make a queen over on this side of the board. Do you have a question? You're rubbing your eyes. Okay. Okay, now we can attack the queen because the check is gone. And you do have to be careful here as white. If you just make like a careless move, the queen is coming to this diagonal, and then next the bishop's coming in, and the rook's coming over. So you can actually, black can get a super initiative. So the queen does want to stay on this diagonal. This is a loose piece after all, if you move away, and you don't want that to become a target for the queen here.
Well, these are really like scenes where like the kings are very weak since they didn't know like longer have those like dark square bishops for like.
Yeah, and black did trade off the dark squared bishop early, which is usually not only a good attacker, it's a good defender, but it is truly a good attacker. But this guy actually usually becomes a very powerful piece. This is the French bishop. Usually it's terrible. But in the Winawer, if you can get control of the bishops, so this actually is an exchange that is good for black. The sound's off, so Ben Simon is somewhere. He's like, oh, I wanted to make the sound for a legal move. But this is actually a very powerful piece. And if you can get control of the light squares, usually around the king, there's a lot of weaknesses, especially maybe for your knight. You might get a good knight versus a bad bishop, and the knight might be able to be on some safe light square in the future. Okay, so we go back. And here, a very interesting maneuver. Come in. Just come in. What are you doing? Where are you going? Where's that guy going? All right. Okay, bishop d3. And now we'll see this maneuver with the queen. Very interesting. The queen just grabs a very nice outpost. She's actually quite annoying. She's going a lot of different directions here. And I'll put the bishop here next. And this also occurs quite frequently, and we'll see it in our main game. So this is always the big question. And in general, this is a mistake for white to make. So you do compromise the pawn structure, but it's not really about that for black. It's all about just having pieces on good squares. And now maybe this bishop will go grab a nice square right in the middle of the board, and you have a dark squared bishop, so that's going to be hard to remove. Maybe I'll go here. White doesn't want to give away the light squared bishop in this type of position. And black is obviously just seeking very active play, and now there's no counterpart to this. So in general, this is a mistake by white. Okay. So the main move is indeed rook b1. Very sensible. What if queen a2? Then I'll take it. I wasn't bluffing. Okay, so the main line, you put the bishop on the most logical diagonal, and you go after the pawn. So now I wonder what the class would do in this position. d4 looks nice for the knight. Okay. And maybe this is okay. It's probably fine. Yes, Sergeant.
Can you play rook d8?
Rook d8. So you don't want to castle, you want to play rook d8? Okay, why do you want to play rook d8? Why do you not want to castle, I guess? Why, you want your king on e8, not here?
Because maybe you can play rook takes c3 and get something with the queen.
People are really afraid of this pin. But you play king b8. Don't you want your king over here? This is the safest spot for your king over here.
Maybe d8.
You want to go to b8, which is why the main move here is to castle. And again, we don't want to go through some weird distortion to try to keep our pawn. That's not what it's about. Just put your pieces on the most active squares, get dynamic compensation. So, and after the capture, so now we're down 2 pawns. But we have very nice pieces. All of our pieces have achieved a very harmonious setup. They're all on very nice squares. Okay, we get out of the pin so the audience can, we're not pinned. And we'll just go a little bit farther. This is not the only way, but this has been played. And this has even been played by Caruana as black. So, good people are playing this way. And so the game went like this. This was another game. And you can notice they got this position, and we'll just stop here. And okay, white is really tied up. You're down 2 pawns, and almost every single top level game here has just been a draw. So the fact that white has material is, it's about enough to compensate for the fact that you have really, really active pieces as black. And it's sort of a matter of taste. Some people, they're really greedy. They like to be up the pawns. And some people like the really active pieces. It's much easier to play, especially in a tournament game. It's just really easy to play the game when all of your pieces are just beautifully in harmony. So that is the main way that these games have gone. So after d4. But we'll return now to the Wesley So game and to move knight to g3. Again, possibly with the intentions of jumping in here, possibly with the intention of just getting on with castling and having a safe king. Bishop d7, we got to get on with castling. And okay, so the obvious plan for this bishop is the same. We want to get it over on this diagonal in the future. So Wesley will need to remaneuver his pieces. We'll see that in a second. And his opponent played here, which has been played successfully by Karyakin twice. Karyakin's won 2 games with this as white, never lost with it. So it is a very serious response. But I guess let's answer the question, what if we just jump right in? We'll just come right in. So again, if we remember the theme of the lecture, I'd like to ask the audience, what would you guys do in this position?
Maybe the obvious move is castles.
Castles, excellent. So obviously, this lets us get forked, and we have to move over, and we lose a pawn. But what matters is not the pawn. It's about putting your pieces on the best square. Now your king is on the best square. So fantastic. And before taking, he can take now, or he can throw in this move to provoke a weakness, so it's a little more accurate. And after they take, you can play here. So this is a very common way to play this. Yeah, so the knight goes back. Okay, and we'll just look at this line briefly. So again, you can kind of see that black is going to put all his pieces on all these great squares. The knight can come in here. Are the white squares going to be weak for white? For black? It is double-edged, so it can backfire. The white squares can be weak. This queen might be able to come in here. This pawn might be able to go here in the future. So both kings really do have to be sort of careful. That's how the nature of the position. And that's what you're playing for as black. You're playing a position that you could very easily lose with one wrong move. But it's the same for white. And now I'll show you this game. So this was a game that was played in 2010. Kovacevic versus Bukal. So it's a 2594 player versus a 2390 player. And in this game, there was already a fantastic move played in this position. So you may want to pause your video, or you may want to, I'll give the audience just a minute here. Sack the knight. Okay, I'll give you guys like 1 second. Sack the knight. This is a powerful sacrifice that needs to be calculated in several lines. You are trying to bust open the center when you play this way as black. You really want to go get this exposed king, and taking the 2 central pawns away, this is quite useful. But now, he played a very accurate move. The next 2 moves are also very nice. Not only did he sack his knight, but the follow-up is very pretty as well. What did you say? Bishop c6. Bishop c6, excellent. Which is much stronger than the check, as we'll see on this next move. Take what? The pawn? Take the queen. With what should I take the queen with?
Queen takes
You want to take here? He played a much prettier move.
Bishop e4?
Yeah, bishop e4. And in the game, he saw nothing better than taking,
Oh, the rook takes e5.
and then rook takes e5. So this was played, but it's not the end of the story. But after they achieved this position, it's very unusual imbalance. So obviously Black's future plans are to be able to manufacture this move, probably with the help of the queen. If he ever gets to play d3 under the right conditions, he's going to be looking good.
What's a 10, but like, what king's really bad?
Which side do you like, white or black?
I like black.
Why do you like black?
Since like you have the e4, the d3 play.
Yeah, e4 and d3, which is coming. And here, already a blunder, but not an easy one to punish, and it wasn't punished in the game. So you can pause at home. I'll give it away because it's a very difficult move, and I want to get on with things here. Here, in the game, queen h7, and then, okay, this was like, okay, this is okay. But he could have won a lot faster with the move rook to f8. The idea is to prevent the move rook to f2.
Really?
Really? You don't believe it? If rook f2, you can take, bring the queen over, and fork these pawns. So that would be bad news for white. So this is, the computer found this in 1 second, and it's like, -3. Black's totally winning now. And it, for example, the computer continuation, you can attack my queen, you can check me. But on my next move, I play d3, and black wins.
Well, what if rook
We won't go like too deep. It's just that's a nice game, and it illustrates the sort of tactical ideas that you're looking for. You want to be very tactically alert when you play this as black. You're down material, so you are kind of looking for tactics to justify a lot of your moves. And the sacrifice on e5 is just a very common theme that you'll see in a lot of Winawer games. Okay, but going back, his opponent, very mature. I'll just play bishop e2. Maybe I'll castle. Maybe I'll get my bishop to this nice diagonal. And, okay, in the game, he castled. There, like every, what? We're back to the Wesley So game. A lot of sources, there's like lots of books that give this move. The idea is just to prevent rook b1 for the moment. So this is a very interesting line to explore. But the most popular move has been to castle. It was Wesley's choice. So white could play rook b1 here. And again, the same idea is possible if black wants to play that way. But okay, from this position onward, let's see if we can maneuver our pieces like Wesley So. And this is sort of a nice test. How would you guys remaneuver your pieces? So this is a planning exercise. What's the plan? How do you put all of your pieces on the best squares? And I'll give you a minute. You can pause at home. You can run away, whatever you want to do. You can whisper, cheat.
What the 2 knights on there without like exchanging? Maybe like knight f5 run away here.
Maybe knight f5 right away. Wesley liked that idea.
What?
Knight f5 right away. And the plan is we sort of got it. He's going to put his other knight on e7. Okay, it's going to go to d5. And the bishop will assume a very powerful diagonal where, it's eyeing down on some squares here.
Just takes, pawn takes, and then.
What if he just takes is the question. He did not take. And so again, we see this similar pawn structure. And again, it's one that white really doesn't mind too much. Now, maybe the bishop will reach this diagonal via a different route. Maybe we'll put our knight here, and one of our pieces will go to c4, which can be kind of annoying. And this is really the pawn structure that black doesn't mind when he plays this variation. And so he said, okay, do it. Take, that's fine with me. But his opponent said, nope, I want to jump in to some of these squares. And I assume white was thinking about black's plan, and he found a way to stop him from doing it. After the knight retreats,
Knight f6?
he gets to play knight f6, gaining a tempo on the rook. And after the rook moves, he just takes the French bishop. And so in a lot of French lines, this would, just be like crazy. Why would you go take that bad bishop? But with this diagonal opened up, it's actually a very, very powerful piece. And white wants to control the light squares in this position. So Wesley took back. Okay, fair enough. Now, since they're pros, after this move, let's see, they made a couple tidying up moves in here in a second. Okay, the knight goes where we said it would go. As pointed out, maybe e3 is a good future home for these knights. And now just rook b1, putting the piece on a better square. And as we've seen, the king goes to b8, which is usually the right square for the king. Okay, now this move, bishop e4. Has Wesley overlooked something? It looks like white is just going to win a pawn. What's going on here? Knight, which knight? Yeah, so the problem with jumping in is the rook takes here and you lose material. So, okay, I mean, it appears that as he blundered, he's 2,700, almost 2,800. Has he really blundered here? Well, in the game, just dropped back. And white did not take. And so again, he's going to tactically justify you not being able to take this pawn. And this is sort of what happens when you have the more active pieces. In the game, the move a4. But if you just grab this, and okay, you go ahead and let's just say white really helps himself. He's like, great, extra pawn, I'm the best. He actually runs into some trouble. And so things work out well for you when your pieces are on good squares. And here's a really good example. In this position, black can play here. Okay, forking the pieces. Your queen and your rook, so you're going to take me, right? Okay. Pawn takes. Queen c6, exactly. So we get onto this diagonal. So it's kind of cool. The queen's sort of doing what the bishop did. That's a very nice diagonal for us in this opening. And we're preventing you. If we just take right away, well, your queen's going to go to e4. So we can gain a tempo by attacking the g-pawn. And now we take. This is a very annoying pawn. And this rook is going here, and we're going to make some threats. So this actually can very quickly backfire on white. Okay, and very alert, his opponent probably worked it out. He's like, okay, not going to take it. I'm going to play a4. And this is a very common theme for white. Where's this bishop going over here? Nobody knows. Well, maybe, yeah, right. So he's not going this way. He's going to go to a3. So this is a very, very typical move that white will play. We got to push the pawn so that the bishop gets this really nice diagonal. Maybe I'll get to take here, and maybe I'll get to put my bishop on d6 and force you to give up in exchange. And it's just a nice diagonal in general, so that's where I'm going. Okay, what's Wesley going to do? All right, and this is going to scare the audience, if I remember right. So it's going to be okay, though. It's all going to be okay. He entered into a pin. But it's going to be okay. All right, we're gonna get through this one.
Kind of like you're not gonna die.
Right, we're not gonna die. But the other variation, you're like, we're pinned. The audience couldn't stand it. But okay, so he's self-pinning. He's not gonna move this knight very soon. I'm attacking your pawn. So queen a4.
Is that like it opens the a5 for white if you take the a4 pawn, or it just doesn't make a move? Like just go.
If white doesn't make a move, take the pawn.
Okay, so
And so the deal is the same. So if you take here, it's still the same deal. I'll jump this in, and before I take back, I'll go here. So it's still the same thing all of these turns later. But okay, here's the point. a6.
b6.
b6? Okay. Luke wants b6, we'll play b6. Okay, that's what Wesley said. And now, What did he play here? I think I remember. After rook to b3,
Probably like
something is going to go here. A rook, a bishop. Something's going to go to a3. How to make more progress here is black. All right, now's the time. Let's jump in. And, okay, it's actually very interesting. At this specific moment, this is actually a very strong move. So if here we have this pin, which is actually a little bit annoying.
well, then
And
Is that pin winning? Because the queen can't really go anywhere to cover that, right?
yeah, so how are you going to get back there and defend that bishop?
Yeah, I feel like that wins, right?
But there's also another super computer line in this variation. If rook e1, which also seems sensible, you know. So now all this, there's no pin. You know, it's not a serious pin at least. But there's a super duper computer line, and it would have been very nice to see if Wesley would have solved it had his opponent fall for this. So a very nice way to win would have been this sacrifice. But why does this work? Okay, he takes, yeah. Knight e3, knight h4. Okay, so I have to defend my bishop, yeah.
queen a1. Well, maybe.
If queen a1, I assume I can drop my queen back. But what if I attack a pinned piece again?
Right.
Okay, you gotta defend it again. And this is what the computer is good at. Watch some of these maneuvers. Okay, take my knight, I take your rook. All right, protect. Okay, attack the piece again. All right, you go back.
So what is it, a draw?
Is it a draw? And if this move works, then you're in trouble, because now you trade a lot of stuff and pick up the rook. So very, very computer line. It would have been exciting to see would Wesley have found that continuation. So there are definitely some tactical problems. And obviously tactics, again, they're going to favor whoever has the better position, whoever has the better pieces, you know. Even if your opponent has a pawn or two extra, having the better pieces will mean usually the tactics are going to work out in your favor. So instead, rook a3. All right, I'll just keep going like this. And if this were a Danny Machuca lecture, they'd just repeat forever. He made me promise that I wouldn't tell you what he was going to lecture on tonight, but it was unspectacular.
Queen a4 is just rook a3.
Okay, so he doesn't want to repeat. Okay, he's playing to win. And okay, you kind of forced. So I ask you, how would you take back in this position?
The knight. Probably the knight.
Pawn takes followed by rook d2. Very interesting. So again, in the game, that's exactly what he did. I mean, moving the knight in here is probably fine for both players. I don't know, I assume I would play a move like this or something. Sometimes you have to worry about sacrifices and I'm coming in and getting you, but it looks very holdable for white. I don't think there's any major problems. All right, if you have a question, can you just raise your hand? But he took with the pawn. Again, he doesn't mind the material loss. That's not what he's interested in. He's interested in improving his pieces, and in this case, he's talking about his pawns as well. E2. This pawn is very dangerous. You have to move your rook, and rook d1. But I ask you, what's the threat? Again, there's the small tactical threat that white needs to be alert. When your opponent's pieces are this good, you got to be careful. There might be some tactics. Queen c5 check. How do I? Do you know that I can do a null move? But okay, queen c5 check. Queen takes. And rook takes rook, and I go here, and you're making a queen. Okay. Also, if you check me, I suppose too, I can move. That's my alternative. No, I can't move. What do I do? How do I pass? Let's just pass. And so the suggestion, sorry, one more time, was if it were black's turn, so let's just pass. Not a good move at all. I don't know a better way to pass. But if this check. So if you check, okay, I'm going to take, and this was the idea. All right, I'll go here. And okay, so even if you're checking me, I just take your pawn. If you take my queen, I get to take your rook, and this is good for white. So that doesn't quite work. That's not after rook d1. That's not the big threat in the position. But it does have to do with the fact, yeah, we're very alert. We notice, this is a guy that maybe we want to take. So he was trying to remove the queen, which is exactly the idea. So yeah, so the big threat is obviously rook to c8, removing the queen from the defense of the rook. So very alert to this. He grabbed this knight. And now this move anyway. And here is very interesting. White is in a lot of jeopardy here. And so I assume he had this in mind and maybe overlooked at just how strong Wesley's position is. But there's a very brilliant way that white can actually save this game and not just totally crumble. And it's a very tricky move. So, I mean, pause, this is a great puzzle. The move that could have been played here is a really genius move. In the game, he played queen g3, which seems like the obvious. That's why I took your knight, so I could play queen g3. But okay, the super duper genius move, I hope you took your time at home, is again, it's white's turn to not really care about material. We're going to have to abandon this rook for a minute and play the ultra brilliant queen e3, setting up some threats of his own. If you take, you should take. I mean, take the rook. Okay, the best move here is queen d8, which not only defends g6, but tactically protects the rook. Because if you take, I check, and your king moves away, and then I queen with check. So this is actually the best move. But let's just play a dummy move, rook a1, just to see the threat. It's mate. Rook takes b6. And then you only calculated this, and that's how you saw the mate.
Oh, well, yeah, like queen takes.
So here, this is the easy line. Bishop back. And you're going to get mated. You can block with your rook and your queen, but you're getting mated. So, and even if you think you're clever, it's not clever enough, because after this check, and there's one more check, you don't really have any good moves here. This is like a perpetual. Do you still agree with that? How about losing? It looks like losing. This is what losing looks like. So okay, what an amazing move had he found it. Queen e3. And okay, with best play, we can show the computer line. Computer said you go here, the rook goes anywhere, it doesn't really matter. You take, and then black can take his choice of pawns, and black's still a little bit better, but I'm defending against your sack, and white has not just totally lost the game. But okay, how are we going to punish this move? Let's go back in time a second. He took, and queen g3. How is he going to punish this? Well, okay, let's get our queen a little more active. Force you can just go away. I never want you to be able to come up here and, protect your pawn and your rook and stuff. So, okay, just go away a little bit. And there's a lot of good moves. But he takes the bishop. Yeah, it's good. And now, after the rook goes back, a very professional move. I mean, taking here and then taking on c2 wins rather easily, but very professional. Guards against any possible counterplay that white may ever hope to achieve. This is, again, that's the diagonal the queen has wanted to go to. You know, just like you want a bishop or queen on that diagonal, it's such a monster piece. And okay, we've defended our rook again. There's no counterplay at all. You have to make luft here because we're threatening to take this and drop our queen in. Okay, so we just triple up, and just now you've broken this pin, so it's not very good. But okay, queen e4, just improve your position, and now it's just really a technical win from here. So nothing that is too difficult for a 2700 player at this point. But white did try a little something. He gets some checks in here in a second. So he played here. Okay, you take with the queen. I play rook d1. So okay, he plays a clever move. Okay, my last hope. This is it. And it at first maybe looks good, especially when you see this move. Because I mean I have to block with my queen. So okay, that looks pretty good for white. But if I can escape the checks, I just move my rook away and then I queen, and then I win. So he got checked a little bit, but nothing major. Just run away, and okay, just keep attacking me. I move my rook out of the way, my queen, and here the game ended. So, all right, a phenomenal job. You can see every move he just kept putting his pieces on better and better squares until the tactics just really worked out in his favor. His opponent was put under a lot of pressure for the whole game, and despite white's material advantage, just the constant pressure is the sort of thing that you're playing, and that's why you want to play the Winawer as black. It's a very fighting, aggressive opening. That'll have to do for our coverage on the Winawer.